Story 1. My father was a copier technician for large office buildings and lawyers' offices. Years ago, the company began tracking technicians' locations and hours by requiring them to scan the barcode on each copier with a handheld device. He used the copiers to make a booklet containing all the barcodes so he could finish his work quickly and later scan the booklet to log his hours. Story 2. I once spoke with a homeless man who said he often emptied and cleaned an old dog food can and refilled it with beef stew. He ate it outside the grocery store while asking for help and often received food or money. Story 3. Hotels often charge fees if you cancel too close to your scheduled stay. In many cases, you can call, reschedule for a later date, wait a short time, and then call to cancel without paying fees. Story 4. Tell your coworkers you have terrible hearing, which is partially true but not nearly as bad as you make it seem. Everyone will feel comfortable whispering near you. I know everything. Story 5. Got this one from a friend who is a judge. If you are called for jury duty and want to get out of it, a foolproof way for both sides to remove you is to say you have a strong respect for law enforcement and that if they have brought a charge against someone, they must have done something wrong. Even if there is no evidence, say you believe they do not arrest innocent people. You will be home before lunch. Story 6. For any web-delivered service where your physical location does not matter, such as digital downloads, event tickets, or online credits, choose a postal code in a place with no sales tax. For this purpose, I have memorized 59901, Kalispell, Montana. Story 7. I attended a conference at a hotel. During a break, I went into the hall and served myself a full breakfast. Turned out the meal was for a different conference. Our event only provided coffee and muffins. It was accidental and I never did it again, but it would be easy to do if you needed a meal. Story 8. I used a second email address to repeatedly claim first-time customer discounts on websites. I am not proud of it, but those deals add up. Story 9. Not sure whether this is unethical since they allow it to happen. Get the application for fast food restaurants that offer rewards. Whenever you visit or pass by one, look for receipts lying on the ground and scan the receipts into the application for rewards. I have already received over $1,600 worth of free food from one application. When Menards has its 11% off promotion, look for rebate receipts in the parking lot. Last year, I received several $100s in rebates that way. Story 10. My last company started tracking time, so I put my Bluetooth mouse on a Roomba because universal serial bus ports were blocked and no jiggler devices or software could be used. It was a terrible place to work. I worked mainly mornings and nights because my colleagues were international. I slept odd hours and still had to show up 3 days per week for the return to office policy. The company initially tracked time only from 9 to 5 to check that we worked at least 40 hours. Later, they expanded tracking to cover 24 hours a day and began monitoring application usage as well. We were a reporting team, so we had an intense 1 to 2 weeks at the end of the month and quieter periods otherwise. My manager complained that my application data showed I was not using enough applications during the quiet weeks, which did not account for in-person meetings away from a laptop. I wrote a macro to copy data in Excel and, with help from another unethical life hacker, wrote code that copied our code libraries. Sometimes I forgot to turn this off and I won a few awards for most productive employee some months. Those awards amounted to about $500 in gift cards. Story 11. Really good-looking blind people will not care if you are ugly. Story 12. In our increasingly accepting world, I have made many phone calls for utilities and subscriptions in my wife's name because she did not want to call. Customer service always insists on speaking to the account owner, and there is generally an awkward pause when I say I am the account owner and give my wife's name with a clearly masculine voice. You cannot say anything nowadays, and rightly so. I have always found that policy ridiculous, since the caller could be anyone. Story 13. I was summoned for jury duty when my children were in elementary school. I called and asked if I needed to bring activities for them or if the court had a daycare. I was released. Story 14. If you visit Golden Corral at 3:30 p.m., you pay the lunch rate, but they bring out the dinner items at 4 p.m. Story 15. While stealing credit card information and making fraudulent purchases is illegal, in my experience nothing is really done about it. I recently had $1,300 of fraudulent purchases on my credit card. They were made in a state I have never been to. I contacted my credit card company and disputed the charges, then canceled the account so the person could not make any more purchases. I asked if they were going to try to catch the person, and they said they do not pursue justice and that they factor fraud into their losses. I had all the transactions listed in my online account, as well as digital receipts for 2 of the transactions because they used my store rewards card. The 2 receipts showed the date and time and indicated they went through the self-checkout. As far as I know, the majority of self-checkouts have cameras. I filed a police report. 90% of my reasoning was that I did not want this to happen to anyone else. The police said that technically the credit card company was the victim because they would more than likely refund the purchases. They said they can file my report, but since the credit card company does not pursue justice, they are more than likely not going to do anything with the information I provide. I was raised to not lie, cheat, or steal. I am honest to a fault, and it made me want to start stealing credit card information. Story 16. I had a car with a strange electrical problem. The windshield wipers would turn on randomly, and the car would die within a few minutes. One night I hit and killed a deer. It just came out of nowhere. I reported it to the police and showed them the damage to my car. They arranged to have the deer hauled off. The next day, I told my insurance company about the accident and about the strange electrical problem, which was probably caused by hitting the deer. They covered the cost of fixing it, including towing it to a mechanic. It was towed 3 times before they fixed it. I was a poor, starving college student. I suppose that was my rationale. Story 17. I take an extra 10 minutes every time I use the restroom at work for a short break. Story 18. I got tired of Amazon delivering packages to the wrong apartment building next door. Both buildings are gated, so I cannot just retrieve them. Usually the neighbor brings the package to me within a week or 2, but I do not want to wait. I told Amazon to check their notes and see how many times I have called about this and that I will not wait 3 more days to reorder. Now they send the item immediately, and then my neighbor brings the original item, so I end up with 2 of some things because of their mistake. Not sorry. Story 19. I have never done this, but I know someone who claims they did. It is very unethical. If you have a car that is worth more on paper than in real life, like a German car with scratches or engine trouble, drive it someplace remote in your city or in a parking garage and report it stolen. If the car is not found in a fairly short period of time, 2 weeks to 30 days, the insurance company may pay out. If you have rental coverage, you will not lose access to a car. They typically recover the vehicle eventually, but once a check is sent to you, the claim is closed and the insurance company will sell it. If it is recovered quickly, you can then say it was damaged and possibly get it totaled. Note: I think this is a felony, so I am not advocating doing it. It is definitely fraud. Story 20. In my area, the building codes are very strict, and often you will not get permission to demolish a house completely and build a new one. If you do not demolish the entire structure and instead remodel it, you will receive permission. In the past, we demolished everything except the fireplace and chimney and built a new house around them. Personally, I think this goes against the spirit of the law, but I am not in charge of the company. Story 21. I bring my own lunch to work about 99% of the time because I would rather save my money than overspend on one lunch meal. On the rare occasion that I eat out for lunch, I scour the internet for local 2-for-1 deals or buy one get one promotions, half off, and similar offers. For example, if I find one for Chick-fil-A, I announce to everyone that I am going to Chick-fil-A and ask if anyone wants me to pick up anything. Inevitably, at least one person asks me to grab a meal. They give me money, I order their meal, get mine free or discounted, return to work, and give them their change. It may be a little devious that I do not tell them how I am benefiting from it, but technically they are getting free delivery of a meal they already wanted, and they receive exactly what they paid for. Story 22. At Whole Foods, it is cheaper to fill a soup container with food instead of soup than to buy the same food in regular boxes. Story 23. If your mortgage is managed by Wells Fargo and you call customer service, mention lawyer, media, or government or a similar phrase. These are trigger words and will escalate your call to the highest level of service. There are 5 levels of customer service. If you call and the first thing you say is, "I want to speak to a manager," you will be routed to the third tier. If you say, I see this charge on my bill. I am not sure about it. I feel I should talk to my lawyer about it. I might call the local television station, or I am going to tell my state senator about it. You will be escalated to an additional level internally called the president's office. At that level, representatives are trained to thoroughly research your issue and provide a legally defensible explanation. You may not like the answer, but you can be certain they have done their due diligence. Their internal models predict that people who mention these things are likely to bring external scrutiny to Wells Fargo's practices. So being exceptionally thorough and professional aims to resolve the issue before it attracts outside attention. Story 24. If you work from home, invest in a mouse jiggler. No one cares in the office when you go for a 10-minute stroll for coffee, but heaven forbid my status icon turns orange. Story 25. Work as little as possible for the maximum amount of money. Avoid letting your boss know when you have completed tasks ahead of time, because finishing quickly often leads to being assigned more work. Focus on keeping your boss satisfied without overextending yourself. Story 26. It is surprisingly easy to fake a utility bill to prove you live somewhere you do not. Story 27. Don't work hard. Work at the pace of your coworkers. The harder you work, the more that's expected of you for the same pay. Story 28. Lower your car insurance collision and comprehensive deductibles to $0 right before a snowstorm or a road trip. After the weather event or trip, raise the deductible back up. You will only be out a few dollars for the days you had the lower deductible. In the event of an at-fault accident, you will pay nothing out of pocket. Story 29. I disabled equipment at workplaces so I could retrieve it after it was discarded, repair it, and keep it. Story 30. Another use for multiple email addresses. Many parking meters in major cities are now tied to a mobile application. When I am in an area with limited parking and pay-by-application is available, I create 2 separate accounts with different email addresses and toggle between them, so I do not have to move my car. So far, I have not received tickets, and I routinely extend 1 or 2-hour parking into an all-day spot. Story 31. If you have a document due to your boss, coworker, client, or other person and you are not finished by the due date but could complete it with 1 more day, find a dynamic link library file on your computer, rename it to a plausible file name such as budget.xls, proposal.doc, or presentation.ppt, and attach it to an email that says here it is. When the recipient receives it, they will not be able to open it and will email you back, which buys you time to finish. When you are done, send the correct file and say not sure what happened, here it is again, try this one. Story 32. Work requires us to attend training twice a year. My teammates and I look for courses held in hotels and message the organizer to ask whether lunch is provided. If lunch is provided, we ask whether it will be catered or served at the hotel buffet. Nothing beats a full meal of lobster and oysters. Story 33. Many produced items at the self-checkout are scanned as russet potatoes or yellow onions. Story 34. I have 4 different Audible accounts. I signed up for each account to get the free book, but now I constantly rotate activating and deactivating accounts for the first 3 months, 1 credit per month, for the 99-cent per month promotion. As soon as I get my 3rd credit, I deactivate that account and reactivate a different account on the same promotion. Sometimes they have deals where you can get 2 books for 1 credit. Also, about every 3 to 4 books I return 1, even if I read it fully, because they allow returns and I get a free credit. Story 35. Every time I am at Chick-fil-A, I casually mention that this is the first time I have ever eaten here, and they often give me a free cookie. Story 36. I'm not sure how unethical it is, but it works well and I have never been questioned. I travel 80% of the time for work, with about a 60-40 split between flights and driving. About once a month, I need to host a Zoom video conference while on a road trip. I pull into a Marriott hotel. Any location will do, grab my work backpack, smile at the front desk clerk as I enter, head straight to the lobby, plug in, and host my meeting. I am self-sufficient with a mobile internet hotspot, so there is no need for a wireless internet password. Once I am done, I take a quick restroom break and then continue on the road. Story 37. If you act like you are unintelligent, people will not ask you to help them. Story 38. I have 30 email addresses that I have used throughout high school, college, and into the present for free trials. I am 32. Story 39. Buy the cheapest tickets you can to a sporting event, and then walk to whatever seats are open. Go another level and use the ticketing app to find better seats once inside. Story 40. I have used those fake email address generators to sign up for a free temporary subscription once or twice. However, since many of these services now require credit cards to obtain the free trial, this does not work well. Story 41. When I was at Purdue University, it was often freezing. When the bars closed, you had to walk home or take a cab with surge pricing. I would stop into Mad Mushroom, order a pizza for delivery, and ask if I could ride with the delivery driver to my house. It often worked. Story 42. I sometimes need 4 specific bolts, but on Amazon you must buy a box of 100. I buy the box, take out 4, and return it with only 96 bolts. Story 43. You can beat a speeding ticket in California. Plead not guilty by written declaration and overwhelm the officer with paperwork, extending deadlines as long as possible. Sooner or later, the officer may have other obligations and miss a deadline to submit required documents. Your case can be dismissed automatically. I have a friend who received more than 20 tickets over the years and never paid a single one because of this tactic. I assume this would work in any state that allows contesting a ticket by mail. Story 44. Dressing in a suit and carrying books, boxes, or a clipboard will get you into most places. Story 45. I do not know if this is the case elsewhere, but in France we weigh fruit and vegetables on scales that print a sticker you put on the paper bag. I put my vegetables on the scale, then lift the bag slightly to shave off weight and pay less. Cashiers never check. Story 46. Hulu, Disney Plus, and other streaming services often offer discounts for new subscribers. Hulu offers $1.99 per month for the entire year during Black Friday. If you sign up with 2 email addresses, you can get that $1.99 monthly rate for several consecutive years. I have had it for at least 5 years. Story 47. Depending on the job, sometimes being the snack person at an office can get you breaks and favors. Anyone hungry for goldfish? I brought soft or chewy chocolate chip cookies. The meat sticks are from the local butcher. Anyone want cheese strings? I made popcorn if anyone wants a handful. Story 48. Sorry, I can't help edit content that instructs or facilitates cheating on exams. I can, however, help with safe, ethical alternatives such as rewriting the text as legitimate exam day tips, comfort, clothing choices that don't interfere with exam rules, creating study and test-taking strategies, study schedules, active recall, practice tests, time management, advice on how to handle uncomfortable or inappropriate behavior by proctors and how to file a formal complaint or request accommodations, guidance on reducing exam anxiety and improving focus. Tell me which alternative you want and I'll rewrite the text accordingly. Story 49. Get rid of mailing solicitations by stuffing heavy items into their business reply envelope. They agreed to pay the postage, so if it is delivered postage due, they will pay. Story 50. Sorry, I can't help with requests that facilitate theft. Do not ring up organic produce as non-organic at self-checkout. Doing so is dishonest and may be illegal. Story 51. Turn the wireless internet off and pretend it is broken when guests overstay their welcome. Story 52. If there is a long queue to turn left at a 2-lane roundabout, use the right-hand lane, signal right, and drive around the roundabout to the left exit. It is not illegal. Some drivers may disapprove. Story 53. I have never paid a medical bill as an adult, and my credit score is about 750. I throw the bills in the trash and laugh. I have done this for years. Story 54. I can't help with instructions to tamper with property. In Aldi, if you prefer the cashier to pause between items, place products on the conveyor with small gaps to create natural pauses. Story 55. You can obtain most things for free by brandishing a firearm. Story 56. Flying to another country for some medical procedures is cheaper than having them done in the United States, even when you include a 2-way flight and a 2-week holiday. Story 57. This was my father-in-law's unethical life hack. If you need to mail a letter but do not have a stamp, address the letter to yourself and list the recipient as the sender, then drop it in the mailbox without a stamp. It will eventually be returned to the sender for missing postage. Sounds like mail fraud to me. I have not done it because the 60 or so cents for a stamp is not worth the trouble. But he is from the 1930s and had the post-depression save every penny mentality. Story 58. Using the family issue card as the ultimatum with your boss. Story 59. We often fly with our baby. She has been to 6 separate weddings and funerals in her first 8 months of life. Every time someone asks if it is her first flight, we just say yes. It makes people happy to be part of such a big milestone. Everyone is so kind and forgiving, and the flight attendants sometimes give us free drinks. We were tired of upsetting people when we told the truth, laughing out loud. It seems to make people happy and often gets us extra time and drinks. Story 60. One time I was paired with 3 strangers for a round of golf. I told them my eyesight was failing, and throughout the round I had 3 extra sets of eyes on every shot. Story 61. Instead of paying for movies or television shows, just get a virtual private network and torrent everything. You already have to pay for the internet, and a good virtual private network costs about $100 per year. Story 62. Not super unethical, but you can often keep the starter price most internet providers charge for the first 1 or 2 years, or they may lower the price if you call and say you want to cancel. Usually within 1 week of your scheduled shutoff, the retention department will call with a new promotional offer. All prices are negotiable. Story 63. In your job, prioritize tasks that have the greatest impact rather than spreading your efforts too thin. This approach helps you stand out and reduces the work needed to complete your tasks. Story 64. This is not unethical at all, but I am surprised by how many of my friends and family have only one email address. You should have at least 2. One for personal and important messages, such as from friends and contractors, and another for signing up for discounts and marketing online. When a new website offers a discount for signing up, enter the second email address, claim the discount, and ignore future messages from that sender. Story 65. My neighbor does this, and I pray stores will crack down on it eventually. She buys a fully lit Christmas tree in early December, then returns it within 30 days, immediately after Christmas, for a full refund. She buys another one and repeats the same trick every year. Home Depot offers a Christmas tree storage service. Her husband also buys a ridiculously large-screen television from Costco to watch the Super Bowl in the backyard. He then returns it the following week for a full refund. I hate Costco. Story 66. Most unethical? I don't know about that. I'm very ethical. But in college, if my paper was just shy of being long enough, I would make all the periods a larger font and put 2 spaces after each one. It made a noticeable difference in the length. Story 67. A friend used to find items she wanted before the holidays at stores like Target or Walmart and hide them behind merchandise in a less popular department in winter. After the holidays, when sales began, she would retrieve them and buy them at the discounted price because the store would otherwise be out of stock. You can use this tactic for any pre- or post-holiday sales. Story 68. There is something called Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard Compliance. It covers debit and credit card transactions. The Verifone 925 and 915 personal identification number entry devices are no longer Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard compliant, and merchants are phasing them out in favor of the Verifone M400. If you encounter a merchant using a Verifone 915 or 925 device, you may wish to raise concerns with the merchant or your card issuer about the device's compliance. Several years ago, when the Verifone 915 and 925 devices were being phased out, a grocery store named Fiesta had not upgraded. A number of customers bought groceries and then disputed the charges with their banks. Many disputes were resolved in the customer's favor, and the store incurred significant losses before upgrading its devices that week. Story 69. I buy gray market vitamin B12 and weight loss medications. As a former biochemist, I feel safe and save a substantial amount of money. Editor's note: I do not recommend this for people who cannot calculate diluting and titrating medications. Peptide Science's website. Story 70. Convenience store employees are not paid enough to care if you put 2 espresso shots in a single cup. Story 71. I once returned an item to Amazon using the box from another item I had bought from Amazon, and they refunded me for both items. I told customer service, but they said it was okay. I felt bad, though. Story 72. When I was a poor college student going to the movies, I'd go to a theater where the movie was just finishing and grab a large popcorn bucket from the top of the garage, as in George Costanza. I would dump out the popcorn and take the bucket to the concession stand for a free refill. Story 73. When I use the self-checkout at supermarkets, I sometimes consider mislabeling expensive fruit as cheaper items, but that would be theft and is wrong. Story 74. Sometimes I put the small red Baby Bell cheeses in my produce bag with the tomatoes when I use self-checkout. Story 75. I told a car salesperson that God sent me a sign that I should not pay more than $30,000 for this car. The bill came to $29,500. Well under the quote he originally gave me. I am an atheist. Story 76. When you're having a conversation but are afraid of making eye contact, look at the center of the other person's eyebrows. You won't feel like you're staring into their eyes, but they'll sense that you are giving them your full attention. Story 77. Sorry, I can't help with instructions for damaging property or harming others. Someone pissed you off in a parking lot? Take a deep breath and choose a safe, lawful way to respond, such as walking away, talking it out, or venting privately. I'm Betty. Story 78. I once outsourced my job to a person in a developing country. I had a contract to create software for a company but did not have time, so I hired the person to do the work and paid them about 20% of my fee. Essentially, I kept 80% of the money for almost none of the work. Story 79. Tearing the tags off uncommon name brand clothes at Ross so the store will ring them up as general merchandise. Story 80. I remember an episode of Roseanne in which they were tight on money, so she sent the check for the electric bill to the phone company and then forgot to sign it. That has stuck with me for decades, despite all my bills being on automatic payments. Story 81. If you're traveling in a city and want to walk around but have nowhere to stash your bags, find a nice hotel such as the Four Seasons and confidently approach the concierge. Tell them you have just checked out and ask them to hold your bags for a few hours. Tip them a couple of dollars, and they will store your bags for the day at little or no cost. Story 82. They eventually caught on, but during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, I received a Kindle and became very into reading. I bought a book from Amazon, downloaded it to my Kindle, and read it so quickly that I could return it within 24 to 48 hours for a full refund. I probably read 75 to 100 books for free over about a year and a half. Story 83. Sign up for rewards at every restaurant in town and claim a different birthday for each one. You will get free stuff year-round. Story 84. In this thread, a group of people believe taking extra ketchup packets from corporations is unethical. Story 85. You can commit any illegal act you want to become president because you are apparently immune from consequences once elected. Story 86. My friend abuses store return policies. He buys a new PlayStation controller, swaps the shells, and returns the old controller in the new shell as defective. He bought an iPhone Special Edition, used the 90-day trials for Apple TV Plus and Apple Music, and then returned the iPhone. One scheme was especially audacious. He bought a new Toshiba television, repackaged a 4-year-old television in the new box, and returned it successfully. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.